Action movies are always a lot of fun, but few have become as popular as the John Wick franchise. This is especially shown with the recent release of John Wick Chapter 4, the fourth film in the Keanu Reeves-led franchise that has done incredibly well at the box office. With Chapter 4 currently trending, we thought it would be fun to give this series the good to evil treatment. In this world of hitmen, criminals, and assassins, who are the most righteous and who are truly scum? I'm Caleb with Wicked Binge, and this is the John Wick franchise Good to Evil. Before we get down to business, let's give out the major spoiler warning for the fourth film. We will be discussing most of the events from the film as well as the ending, so if you haven't seen the fourth film and are interested, go check that out first. As usual, we'll be starting with our most noble character and working our way down to the most evil. This first category of characters are the good. Earning our gold medal of good is Helen Wick. Helen is a major character in the franchise despite her extremely limited screen time. Helen is John's deceased wife who died due to a disease and was the one thing keeping John unconnected from his assassin life. Helen kept John calm and happy, but after her death, she still continued to be a helpful force for him, gifting him Daisy and telling him to stay strong and hopeful. Helen pops up once in every movie and she is always the one helping John work through what he needs to do. Helen is unequivocally good, and while her death is a kicking off point, she deserves this spot. Taking the silver medal of good is Karen. Karen is the concierge for the New York Continental Hotel and a good friend to both Winston and John Wick. Karen takes his job very seriously as he tries to handle any grievances that come about, such as when John had his fight with Miss Perkins. He handles every situation with grace and makes sure that John is patched up appropriately.
I'm sorry to say that no one's that good.
And that those in the hotel are very happy in their positions and is willing to die for the people he cares about. In the fourth film, he goes with Winston when his hotel is decommissioned and ends up killed, happily accepting his fate for Winston. Karen is an all-around good person, and the only reason he's worse than Helen is because he does help criminals on the regular. Bagging the bronze medal of good is the Bowery King. The Bowery King is a homeless man who runs the soup kitchen.
It's Christmas. We're going to Applebee's after this.
A homeless shelter that doubles as a place where assassins can come together, staffed by homeless people and vagrants. Despite crossing paths with Wick in the past and getting severely harmed, King works with Wick happily. He supplies him with the gun needed to kill Santino, and in the fourth film gives John the bulletproof suit he wears at the beginning of the film. Now, it's heavily implied that prior to the series he was less of a good guy since Wick cut him twice, but that isn't the case nowadays. King isn't a bad guy, all things considered, hence his ranking. Ranking next on our list is our first John Wick 4 character, Koji Shimazu. Koji was the manager of the Osaka Continental and a friend of John Wick from his past. During the events of the fourth film, despite Wick being excommunicado, he allows Wick to stick around despite the illegality. Koji cares deeply about his friends and says that friends are one of the most important things in the world. Koji goes as far as to die for John Wick and his daughter, fighting against Kane so that John can escape. His death proves just how good of a guy he really was, and that's why he ranks so high. In a very similar boat is Sofia Al-Azwar. Sofia is the manager of the Casablanca Continental and an old friend of John Wick. However, unlike Koji, she initially refuses to help John, not until she is reminded about the marker that the two of them shared and therefore she essentially owed him. Despite this, Sofia helps to the best of her abilities, taking John to the desert to find the Elder and helping him deal with her old boss, Barada. Sofia also does what she does for her daughter, and while she initially refuses to help John, she helps him in the end, hence why she ranks below Koji. The man himself, John Wick, aka Baba Yaga, is up next on our list. John Wick is an assassin and an ex-military man who is the main protagonist of the series. He was an orphan in the Soviet Union who was adopted and trained by the Rusko-Roma crime family into becoming the eventual emissary of death and Baba Yaga we know today. When his wife died, she left behind a young puppy named Daisy for him, and after being assaulted, a man named Yusuf killed Daisy, the last piece of hope that John had. The destruction of Hope ended up causing him to turn back to his life of assassination. John then went on a cascade of revenge, killing anyone in his path, including those from his past who intended to abuse him and the High Table who excommunicates him and tries to kill him. By the end of the franchise, he ends up getting away from being under the High Table's thumb, only to die shortly after, finally at peace. John Wick is a sad man with a bad past, but Wick deserves his spot because in all reality, he was forced into this life and tried to leave it. Rounding out the good section of our list, Winston Scott. The final Continental manager we'll be talking about, Winston runs the New York Continental. Winston has been an on and off ally of Wick since the first film, where he is fought by the man's side with very few complaints. He does shoot Wick off the roof of the Continental in the third film, but this is because he was essentially forced to. In the fourth film, he acts as Wick's second, being the one who would die if Wick loses his duel with the Marquis. Winston is a good friend and ally, but considering he did shoot John in the chest, he's definitely the least good of the heroes. In a franchise about murder, assassins, and moral gray, we have to talk about the middle section. This is the gray area. Starting off the gray area of our list is the director. The director is the leader of the Ruska Roma and the adopted mother of John Wick. During the events of the third film, the director is harassed by the adjudicator and stabbed through the hands as recompense. Now, she seems to be a relatively good person as she happily adopted and trained Wick, but she still leads a pretty substantial crime family and sits at the relatively villainous High Table, hence why she has to sit in the gray. Moving further down our list, we have Kane. Kane is a blind assassin who is an old friend of Wick's and a man who wanted to get away from the High Table. Kane initially refuses to hunt down Wick, and it isn't until he is threatened that he ends up doing it. Kane gives out more chances than any man should, as even after stabbing Shimazu, he gives him the chance to leave. At the end of the film, he helps Wick up the stairs for the duel and inadvertently kills him during it. Kane is a good guy doing what he does for his daughter. Luckily, he does the right thing at every opportunity he isn't being threatened to kill. In a very similar vein, we have Cassian. Cassian was the bodyguard of Gianna D'Antio and an old acquaintance of John Wick. Cassian took his job very seriously and tries to kill John for the death of Gianna. Cassian does follow the rules of the Continental and stops fighting Wick when asked, but does hunt him down once his bounty is increased. Cassian is a man of honor and does what he thinks is the right thing at every chance, especially when it comes to protecting his ward. Moving on to a set of characters from the third film, we have the Shinobi Twins. The Shinobi Twins are a pair of assassins who work for the High Table and more specifically the Adjudicator. The two of them leave a trail of bodies behind them, and whilst they do this, the fight they have with John proves a lot of interesting things. The twins continually let John get back up to fight, especially considering how tired the fight had made him. They claim to be big fans of his work and want a duel of honor, and while they are swiftly defeated, at the very least they're on the better side of assassins. From student to sensei, up next we have Zero. Zero is an assassin for the High Table and the man who trained the Shinobi Twins. Zero also runs a sushi restaurant and is implied to have been assassinating people for quite a while. Zero runs an army of assassins and hunts down Wick on the orders of the Adjudicator.
See, that's why you're special, John Wick.
Zero is a man who cares deeply for fair fights and honor. He also claims to be a fan of Wick's, and he is a dealer of death.
I'm a huge fan.
Upon his death, he says it was an honor to fight him. Zero doesn't rank any lower because, like a lot of people, he was just doing his job, although he seemed to enjoy it more than most. Up next on our list is another bodyguard, none other than Ares. Ares is a bodyguard to Santino D'Antonio and a mute woman who protects him with her life. Now, Ares, like Cassian long before her, cares deeply for her ward and lays her life down to protect them. However, this means she's leading an army of assassins to hunt down one of the most feared men in the world. Seeing as she communicates purely through sign language, she seems not to despise Wick much as she tells him, "Be seeing you," a reference to the first film. However, considering who exactly she guards, she can't rank much higher on our list, seeing as she happily kills those in her way when necessary. Rounding out the gray area of our list is Tracker/Mr. Nobody. Mr. Nobody is an antagonist in the fourth film, someone who tracks down people for a living and then assumedly kills them. Through the movie, he makes it clear he only cares for the money, as he won't kill Wick until the man's bounty is at an acceptable level. This leads to him even helping the man on and off. However, he does attempt to murder him more than once and only really stops because Wick saves his dog, and he truly appreciated that. Tracker is also a very secretive man as he never reveals his name, which, in all honesty, is probably a good thing. But now we have to talk about the bad guys. This is the worst of the worst. These are the bad to evil. Starting off our bad section is the man who started it all, Yusuf Tarasov. Yusuf is a mafia member and the son of the infamous Vigo Tarasov. He starts the franchise off by making a real ass of himself, beating up and stealing from John Wick, only to subsequently kill his dog and start John's infamous quest for revenge. Yusuf is a sniveling little coward who continually proves that he doesn't deserve to have any power, and he gets his comeuppance in a rather satisfying way. Yusuf may have given us one of the most interesting and cool protagonists of all time, but Yusuf himself is little more than a roadblock. Jumping all the way to the third film, up next we have The Adjudicator. The Adjudicator is a woman who works for the High Table, working to make sure those who are excommunicado are not held by anyone who may have helped them prior. She hires Zero, has him stab Wick's adopted mother through the hands, and gives the Bowery King 7 lashes across his body. She even tries to make Wick's friends betray him and continually calls Winston a liar and a crook. The Adjudicator seems to be working mostly on orders and seems to hold no ill will to Wick, and claims to be someone who cares deeply for rules and regulations. She manages to escape the bottom 3 simply because she doesn't have as much of a problem with Wick as them. Bagging the brutal bronze medal of bad is Vigo Tarasov. Vigo is the main antagonist of the first film and a brutal mob boss. He seems to care deeply for his son up until the point that Yusuf pisses off the Baba Yaga. Vigo initially tries to calm Wick and solve things peacefully, which is a first and only for the series, and that's one of the reasons he doesn't fall that far on the list. However, after Wick refuses, he instantly goes to protect his son in every way we can think possible. Vigo sends armies after Wick, hides Yusuf in places he wouldn't be found, and even kills his own subordinates to try and kill the man. Vigo is a seemingly good dad, but he's a terrible person, and a very good start to the series. Now, real quick, before we get into our last entries, if you'd like some more John Wick content, check out our brand new video, Sentencing John Wick Villains for Their Crimes, over on Cinema Sentencing. We'll be doing a lot of sentencing videos for other live-action movies and TV shows too, so check it out. Link below. Sneaking from the first film to the sinister sequel this script stems from and snatching the silver medal of evil is the Marquis Vincent de Gramont. The Marquis is the main antagonist of the fourth film, where he proves to be a massive threat while also being a whiny brat. Vincent cares about the rules and consequences and decides to hunt down Wick as part of this. However, he acts as a puppet master, hiring others to do his dirty work, and a coward, not even dueling Wick himself, sicking Kane on him instead. He then steps in at the last moment to try and kill Wick and grab the glory, but is quickly dispatched. The Marquis cares little for the people under him, and with full control of the High Table, he tries everything in his power to try and escape any consequences he may face, despite his supposed moral basis. this. However, grabbing our gold medal of evil is the grim Grandmaster, Santino D'Antonio. Santino is the main antagonist of the second film and a person who hired Wick along in the past in hopes to use him later. It seems initially in the past he was a good guy to some as he helps Wick with his impossible task, but it quickly proves he isn't. Santino blows up Wick's home, the last refuge he had of his wife, simply because he denied Santino's request. Essentially forces Wick to kill his sister so he can usurp her spot and abuse his power pretty much daily. Santino is also a snake because as soon as Wick succeeds in his task, Santino sends several slimy soldiers to execute the man.
And I know it might feel personal.
Wick manages to survive, and when Santino realizes this, he quickly hides in a continental where no business can be done and plans to hide there indefinitely. Santino deserves the bottom spot because everything he does is evil. He doesn't have a single solitary good bone in his whole body.